to the discussion as regards BRSR, which actually full form Business Responsibility and Sustainability Reporting, which is nowadays getting momentum. Everyone wants to understand what is BRSR, what are the relevant provisions, what it should consist, how it is to be done. So we carried out the series of webinar on that topic, and accordingly we are having this webinar series. And today we have our panelist, and today's our topic is BRSR 9 Principles of NGRBC. That is National Guidelines on Responsible Business Conduct, full form. And we have our panelist, Dr. Aditi Misal, lead ESG Welspun Enterprise, and CA Sachin Madikar. He has a vast experience on this field, and he was also a panelist earlier in our webinar. To formally welcome you both, thanks for your time. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
And Dr. Aditi.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Dr. Aditi is her third consecutive session, and we really appreciate your dedication and time and efforts given to us. Thanks a lot for that.
Thank you, ma'am. My pleasure.
Yeah, to formally introduce our panelist, Dr. Aditi Misal. Dr. Aditi is a GRI certified sustainability professional with 24 years of experience and leads ESG at Welspun Enterprise. She leads the company's comprehensive ESG strategy and implementation, focusing on embedding sustainability into business operations. She serves honorary positions at the International Sustainability Water Sustainability Coliseum, DAI Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and Joint Values. With a PhD in sustainability green behavior, she owns a patent for the smart toilet tracking system and copyrighted work on empowering sanitation decisions and global system science for sustainability, and has a notable academic record with 10 plus Scopus papers, 3 publications in A-rated journals, and presentation at 15 plus international conferences at NUS, Singapore, and Harvard Martin Center, Boston. As regards Doctor, portfolio includes consulting for diverse industries on ESG frameworks, materiality assessment, sustainability actions, and reporting. She has over 14 transformative projects across different subjects. I'm reducing your profile, Dr. Aditi, for the sake of convenience time. It's huge, we really appreciate. She has been a trainer and consultant for GE, Tata Motors, Webtex, and other companies. Beyond her professional pursuits, she is a mentor, educator, and an advocate for compassionate leadership, blending her personal values with her mission to create a more sustainable world. Welcome, Dr. Aditi. Thanks for your time. Our another panelist.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Is CA Sachin Madikar. Mr. Sachin is a senior finance leader with over 2 decades of experience in financial governance, compliance, and corporate social responsibility. As a former CFO of Reliance Foundation, he oversees India's largest CSR finance portfolio and played a key role in CSR compliance and reporting, made significant contributions in BRSR and sustainability reporting. His expertise spans strategic planning, regulatory compliance, mapping, and integrating ESG principles into outcomes and financial system. A chartered accountant and a cost accountant by training, he has also completed an executive program from IIM Bangalore. Mr. Sachin brings a unique perspective on aligning financial leadership with responsible business practice and long-term impact. Welcome, Mr. Sachin. Thanks a lot for time.
Thank you.
Of course, our own Mr. Sudhakar Saratula, who doesn't require any introduction. I'll just say he's a chief consultant and proud consultant of Mehta. Thanks, Sudhakar. And our presenter today is Dolly Thakur. She is a CSR professional from ICSR, and she is having hold on secretarial compliance and CSR and compliance as well. With this, I will suggest that what is today's topic, what we are planning is that we are going to discuss 9 principles. Now, national guidelines on responsible business conduct. BRSR, this entire is backed on the 9 principles. MCA in 2019 issued national guidelines on responsible business conduct, which states this 9 principle. Of course, it has its little bit explanation and what you are required to, action is required and requirement. This 9 principle try to ensure, if implemented, the company work ethically, socially sustainable, socially responsible. And these all 9 principles are interrelated and correlated on each other. So it can't be selective, you have to take holistic. All 9 principles are crucial, and BRSR reporting is relevant, is respect to all these 9 principles. So today we will try to touch upon, honestly, it's a big thing, 9 principles, each principle runs into a big, long time. So we are distributing, which I think Sudhakar will say that how we are running to do that. So with this, I will request Sudhakar to say how we are taking ahead, and then Dr. Aditi and Mr. Sachin can say a few words, and Dolly, you can start with this. Over to Sudhakar, please.
Okay, Dipti, and good evening, all participants. In fact, you know that we are around the time where the BRSR reports are to be finalized because as a part of our annual report. That's why we thought that this is a most apt topic which we have to take up. And we are also say that if you have to prepare a BRSR, a compliance officer in isolation will not be able to prepare this. For this, the entire organization needs to be sensitized. To sensitize the organization, first of all, the compliance officers themselves have to have a fair amount of knowledge as far as the BRSR is concerned. And whatever the SEBI format is there, that is not the end of it, that is just the beginning of it. But if you want to sensitize your colleagues across the organization, you need to understand the what's called as the fundamentals and foundation of this BRSR, where it started and how it is progressing further. So these 9 principles, what we are going to discuss today, contains the 9 thematic pillars of the business responsibility, and these are called as the 9 NGRBC principles. And according to me, these principles are interdependent, interrelated, as well as not divisible also. And the businesses have to address these 9 principles holistically while you are attempting to prepare the BRSR. So, as far as the other technical, the subject this is concerned, I request Dr. Aditi and Sachin to take it forward. And wherever company secretaries or chartered accountants point of view, what we have to do it, I will step in there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sudhakar sir, for laying the foundational um, you know mm, point of view or direction for the discussion today. And as we were discussing earlier too, that it's very important that everyone makes an effort to fundamentally understand the concept, where BRSR comes from, what the genesis is, and so on and so forth. So there is a poem by Harivansh Rai Bachchan ji, Gotakhor. So unless one makes repeated effort to deep dive into all of these principles, understand what they mean, uh, it will be difficult to find the pulse of wisdom of sustainability and ESG, as I would say. So, if we have to simplify the 9 principles of NGRBC here, there is a very simple formula which I made, that is be the right. So, where B means be honest, where you talk about ethics, transparency, accountability, and all. E stands for eco-safe products. Make safe, sustainable goods, where you talk about LCA and, the EPR principles that you follow in packaging and all of those things. Then T stands for treat workers well, or treat your employees well. So here you basically talk about overall employee well-being, safety, the training that you have been giving, the career growth that you're offering, how what has been ratings in regards with employee well-being for your organization, and so on. I'm just giving the overview first, and then we can do the deep dive as we go further. H stands for hear everyone. All of your stakeholder, you have to first identify who those stakeholders are and define as to what are the different modes that you're getting engaged with these stakeholders. Do a RACI matrix for them and find out to whom you have to be what communication mode has to be there, and then what should be the depth of communication to each one, what should be the frequency of communication for all of these stakeholders. So that's basically what you discuss as part of Hear Everyone. So B, the, in T, after TH is E, yeah, ensure rights. So respect human rights. That's the next principle that we talk about. R is restore nature, yeah, where we talk about environmental responsibility here. I, influence fairly. G, growth together. And T is think of consumers, deliver safe, fair value to consumers. Now, when we talk about these principles, in depth and look at the action and the impact. So what I'll do is I'll take you to the case study of Western Enterprises again, and help you to understand how each principle looks like in terms of the well action and the impact that particular action has led to for each of these principles. So for principle 1, which is be honest. Here, in terms of action, you showcase here, is there board approved code of conduct policy, whistleblower policy, anti-bribery policy, ESG policy? Yeah, and so so you can list out around quality policy, safety policy. So you can list out around 10, 15 policies according to the business sector that you are into, which are very, very important in terms of material topics for you. Are all of those policies in place? Some will be towards business conduct, and others would be more material because you are into that particular business. So that's the checklist of policies that you should have first, and then accordingly have a tick as to what all policies are in place and whether they are available in the public domain. So they have to be proper signed by the authorized authorities and be in place where the stakeholders can access it. Okay. Now, that was the first point that we talk about here. The second point here is the ESG governance under the direct oversight of the Apex ESG committee. So when I say Apex ESG committee, this is the ESG, it could be ESG CSR committee, it could be called by different all names. But what it means, there is a committee as part of the board, which will be having an oversight of ESG as an activity. Okay. So what is the constitution of that? How many women independent director are part of that ESG CSR committee also? So that's another point that you've mentioned here. And the third is whether all of your businesses are audited for compliance and ethics standards. So all of the financial audited statement, how regularly that is happening, whether it has been compliant or not in terms of whatever observations came, comments came, and whether they have been closed. So then impact, suppose this is what is the requirement, but how will you show yourself doing good work in terms of principle 1 is, here you will talk about the strong ESG ratings, yeah, through maybe CDP, Sustainalytics, it could be Dow Jones, and so on and so forth. Okay. So that will be the impact seen because of all of these good efforts that we have taken in terms of governance. So that was the principle one. So Sudhakar said principle one done. So do we want to hand over to Sachin sir for something and then
Yeah,
we'll
yeah,
come
please
back?
do that. And then when Dolly puts one after the other principles, then we will discuss it accordingly.
Okay, good. Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, Mr.
Yeah, thank you, Mrs. Mehta, also Dr. Aditi and Sudhakar sir. A couple of quick introductory remarks, and then I think we'll hand it over to Dolly. First and foremost, sustainability, while it started off as a reporting requirement, I think it's a very excellent tool for planning as well. Now today in about last 5 6 years, where the entire sustainability discussions and discourse has evolved, and for new age companies like startups and all, these 9 principles can actually be the basis on which the entire business can be structured or formatted. So I think it's a very exciting time in which we are in. That's number one. Uh, this also means the established companies, large companies, etc., which are there. The top 500, top 1,000 companies which have this mandatory requirement and all essentially have to dig deep into their existing systems and processes. My experience tells me that the data points with respect to all these 9 principles and the subclauses, etc., uh, almost 80 to 90% of the data exist within the organizations. It resides. It's just that we need an architecture to actually mine this data. This could mean, looking at the SAP module, finance module, material, supply chain, people, etc. That's number one. So I think a lot of data currently exists. So that brings me to the third point, and that's where I'll close, is the role of technology. Uh, I think going forward, the entire sustainability reporting, the way we are doing it right now, will actually undergo a sea change. And as company secretaries, as chartered accountants, as consultants, I think we will have to work and a lot on developing appropriate tech platforms, how we can actually make use of some of the tools which are now being talked about in AI or ML, etc. Which these are the tools which will help us mine data which exists already in the organization, and perhaps come up with a much more enriched uh, report, sustainability report. So these were the 3 points I thought I'll just share at the beginning, and I'll hand it over to Dolly for taking us through the 9 principles. And of course, as panelists, we'll be happy to contribute as we move along. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Dolly, before you take up just one or two questions or further, I would like to add on is that several times this question comes up that to which are the listed companies to which BRSR is mandatory. Though we know that there are top 1,000 listed companies are there initially to start with, it is 250, 500, 750,000, like that it is there. What my advice to all the participants is that today your company might not be falling in that 1,000, but very soon that 1,000 will be extended to 2,000 and end up in it's a very near future. They may say all listed companies it is going to be applicable. Second question also is that Companies Act also there is a committee already which is working on to amend the Companies Act. Tomorrow we don't know. They may even extend this to unlisted companies also. So it is better to understand that it is a matter of time. This is going to be made applicable to all companies also, at least to major companies, whether it is irrespective of the concern, whether it is listed or unlisted. Because as the caption itself says that guidelines on responsible business conduct. So what it says is by that whichever is the business, they have to do it with a kind of responsibility and accountability. And definitely major companies, whether they are listed or unlisted, this is going to happen. It's a matter of time only. Second thing is that as I was re-emphasizing that some companies, because of the work pressure and all, so they're outsourcing the preparation of BRSR to, well, I mean, whether it may be PCS firms or chartered accountant firms and all. It is good, no doubt about it. You can do that. But please remember one thing. output will be based on the input what you are giving it to them. If it is a quality input, obviously you will get quality output. That input itself is substandard. Obviously, you cannot expect a quality output. So it is the responsibility of the compliance officers, even if you are outsourcing it, you have to take the ownership of the particular the data compilation and to be given to the outside agencies so that they will be able to analyze that and put it in a proper format and then give it back to you so that you can put it before the board. And even the companies to whom it is not applicable today, it is better to take the baby steps right now, have inculcate this voluntarily to prepare this thing. In fact, even in the listing regulations also, and prior to that, even in the listing agreement, where various responsibility report was made mandatory for some listed companies. That time also they say that by the companies which want to adopt these things voluntarily, they can do that. So the way I used to say always, that Schedule 4 of the Companies Act 2013, which is the code of conduct, which prescribes code of conduct for the independent directors. But if you see the code, for every director, it is like a Bhagavad Gita. And same is the case with these 9 principles, according to me. If anybody wants to, as Sachin has rightly mentioned, especially the startups, then they have to do it. If they inculcate these 9 principles at the formative stages itself, and then the foundation of the governance will be impeccable. So with this, I give a pause here and ask request Dolly to take it forward. Thank you.
And also in addition to if your organization is planning international business, overall overseas, this BRSR, ESG is given tremendous importance in certain European countries. It's compulsory and all that. So keep in mind whether it is you are big or small, but if you are looking at an operational level, business level, this is very important for an organization. And I would also like to add that, like to inform our panelists that Sudhakar is a member of ESG and Sustainability Board of ICSI for 2025. Okay, with this, Dolly, over to Dolly. Thanks.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thanks to all the panelists for the, to start this webinar with a very, informative note. So Miss Aditi is joining. She is facing some network issue. So she will be joining in 2 minutes. So I wanted to thank all the participants, and I wanted to say that I'm very grateful to Mehta and Mehta, as this is my 20th presentation on the BRSR CSR related domain. So now we will start with today's session. Yeah.
And still we find it is still we have to do, right, Dolly?
Yes, we will be doing.
It's such a vast and depth topic with a depth.
Yeah. So earlier we had started with the evolution of BRSR and the sustainable development goals, and we have just given the overview about how it is ST and NGRBC are correlated. So now we are doing little deep dive on 9 principles of NGRBC. Yeah. As we know that BRSR is about, companies sharing how they help the planet, people, and ESG focuses on taking care of the environment, treating people well, and running the business in the right way. Now, it's not a one-time or a single event, we can say. It's a continuous journey that engages every facet of the company. The NGRBC help the companies to do all this better via this 9 principles, which we will start focusing on one by one. So first, let's understand about the National Guidelines on Responsible Business Conduct, that is the NGRBC. As we have already discussed, that these principles are correlated, interconnected. So we have to, have a holistic approach when we are preparing the BRSR report. So MCA has issued these guidelines in 2019. These are the 9 thematic pillars of the business responsibilities, which are called as principles. And in each principles, there are core elements are given, which is very much descriptive, in nature, explaining the essence of that particular principle. So yeah, I will just call Miss Aditi just to check on. Just a moment. And by the time we can just continue with this Sachin sir, would you like to say something on this? Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So I think these guidelines, when they were introduced almost 5-6 years back, uh, since then we've come a long way. And I think the most interesting part of this is that we need not look at these nine questions or nine statements as discrete. I mean, they're all interconnected. And when you actually map it, you get a 360-degree view of a business. Each of these principles, which is outlined later on, is interconnected. And if you actually do what is called as in a typical sense, the stakeholder mapping of any business, I think we are actually covering it all the stakeholders. So that the third point which is mentioned here is extremely important to take for any consultant or anyone who's actually preparing these reports, to take a comprehensive view of the business. And I think that's where the role of accountants and company secretaries come in very important, because then we as professionals, we need to understand the entire business uh, the company is into. And that's what will actually makes these report more meaningful and more focused. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely so. Yeah, just a sec. Yeah. So now we will focus on as we know the basics about the NGRBC, evolution, and sir has also given his inputs. So now let's just understand about the BRSR format. So BRSR format is divided into 3 sections. In section B and C, it is derived, or we can say evaluated from the NGRBC principles. The section B, which talks about this management and process disclosures, it is further divided into the disclosures for policy and management process, and also governance, leadership, and oversight. So there are multiple questions under this section where companies are, being asked on their policy, how they are covering each principle and its core element. And further, they have to state the reason if they are not following that or not covering that particular principle. And also they have to give the disclosure on their value chain partners. So yeah, over to you, ma'am. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dolly, and thank you so much, Sachin ji. I think what Sachin ji has rightly mentioned, where the overall business perspective is brought in, the strategic perspective is brought in, and then we talk about not just the compliance, but also how ESG works more hand in hand with strategy in terms of sustainability. Um, you know, I'm sure a lot of questions are pouring in here, but before we get into all of those questions, very important to understand the section B, because section B talks about uh, what system or processes have you brought in place to make ESG effective, and also the policies. So basically, what is happening, what impact it has created comes later. But how have you made it possible? And that how is answered in section B. So for this, what efforts have you taken in terms of what all policies aligned to each of these 9 policies are in place? That's the first factor when you talk about section B. In the next part, basically you talk about who is in charge of making this ESG and sustainability compliance strategy to happen. Who is basically responsible for it? So then here you talk about basically the ESG CSR committee, the team. Is there a designated person? So there are questions coming in like why CS has to do it, or can't someone from HSC do it, or why separately ESG person is designated person is needed, and so on and so forth. So of course depends upon the organizational requirement, also depends upon how the arrangement has been. But let me tell you, the BRSR, because it is related to business responsibility, yeah, and social responsibility. A lot of the responsibility in reliance to compliance lies with the CS team, yeah, the company secretary team. And even though an organization may appoint a separate designated person who can be lead ESG and sustainability, they have to work very closely hand in hand with the CST. So irrespective of whether you have a separate team for it, the CS has to definitely look into it. So there is no running away from that responsibility as such. So what is the team who is making this happen? Then what are the resources made available? Who are the people allocated particularly to do this particular job? So here basically the BRSR asks about what is the ESG budget given, and especially for the R&D, for the innovative approaches, because to reach a new height in terms of sustainability, better responsibility, better action in business, your old ways will not help. That's why intelligently this is being asked in section B as to what are the resources which are made available for this particular purpose. Then do your policies follow Indian and global standards? And what are those Indian and global standards aligned to which your policies have been in place? So here you talk about GRI. Yeah, so standards and frameworks, remember, they are different. And we discussed about what is the difference in the first webinar session also. Please do revisit if you would like to that particular session. Then are you engaging with your stakeholders? Again, identify who all are they and what are their concerns. Are you hearing regularly from them, and how are those being resolved? And then how do you share your ESG efforts with others? So, because sustainable development goals, they are also interconnected, as what Dolly was also mentioning in the first BRSR, very particularly good point that she mentioned there. The same thing I would like to say here, that it is the ecosystem which has to get mature. So it is not a single company which will do better and then everything will be all right. No. So it is the whole value chain, whole ecosystem that has to mature. So how are you helping others? Whether it is your value chain, and whether it is, are you part of some association who are helping ESG to be improved and so on and so forth? Like, for example, what Mehta and Mehta company is doing here is that. How are you sharing your ESG efforts with others? And have these actions made your business better? Yeah. How has it improved strategy? How has it improved decisions? What has been the outcome? So that is the overview of section B over here. And I think I'll request Sachin to give an oversight from his experience, wisdom here about the section B, and over to you.
In fact, before Sachin step in, and okay, that Dr. Aditi, you have mentioned, and there is a question also in the chat box, that why company secretary is responsible for BRSR reporting. Okay, can one from EHS department can report? No doubt about it. As you rightly said, it depends upon the organizational view. But please remember, the mandate of BRSR is under listing regulations. But who is the compliance officer? Compliance officer who has to ensure that listing regulations are complied with is the responsibility of the compliance officer, who is the company secretary. So obviously, whether we like it or not, we have to take the ownership as far as the BRSR is concerned. The other people, that EHS person, or you can say ESG person, or you can say whoever the nomenclature you may give it to that particular department, they might be internally responsible. But as far as the regulator is concerned, that you are the compliance officer and you are responsible for that. Because of that, the compliance officer has to have fair amount of knowledge about this particular subject. He is the person who has to coordinate with all concerned. And but he cannot just, that's what I said, that even if you are outsourcing also, still you have to take the ownership of that thing. So it is for the company secretary Whether you like it or not, we have to develop. We cannot say that annual report timing, how can I take the responsibility? Each and every word, whatever is going into the annual report, it is the responsibility of the company secretary. Because the directors are always look towards the company secretary, not even to the CFO or CEO. As far as the compliances are concerned, it is the company secretary who is there. Even the regulators, the way, the kind of support they are giving these days to the professional company secretaries. If you see in Regulation 30, they said that the directors, KMPs, and all senior management have to submit the information, whatever is required under the listing regulations, and enable the company secretary to comply with Regulation 30. Same is the case here also. It is, you can always draw inference from there. You can say internally in your organization, because now, please, as a compliance officer, you are reporting to the board directly or to your managing director. Please take this opportunity, get the message passed across the organization that whatever the information is to be given well in time, they have to do it. At the same point of time, let me also just one more thing I would like to say before handing down to Sachin. Don't prepare the BRSR at the end of the year. If you start preparing that in the month of April or May, you will not be able to reach the goal. You have to start preparation. If not after 6 months, at least after 9 months. That means January onwards, you have to start preparing for this. Only thing that what is going to happen is 9 months information you keep it with you. It is what, in fact, Sachin will tell you that in Reliance, we used to do like that 6 months, 9 months, 2 months, and then the last 1 month, we have to add it on. Always third week of April, we used to have the board meeting for approval of the financials. How we used to do that? This is the way we used to do that. So, Sachin, now you please take it forward and then also say, let us not only the theoretical concept, because this is practical experiences. Sharing also is very, very important, Sachin. Please do that. Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you. So you rightly said, when we were at Reliance, we would actually have in 3 weeks' time the entire, BRSR report ready. And this was only because we started working on it sometime in October, once the half-yearly closure was done, for that particular year. So what it required was, what I would say is a systems approach to doing this part of thing. So once the board has actually established the governance principle, policies, procedures, everything is in place, you set up a formalized system for data capturing and reporting, which means each of the information point you are able to break it down into smaller and smaller components, link it to an individual or a departmental outcomes, so and have a spock ready for capturing that. And that's the architecture which we would start that work sometime in October, September, October onwards. So each person who's in the organization knows his or her contribution in terms of a specific area and starts tracking it. So we will have an interim outcomes or outputs, for the 6 months ending September, then probably 9 months. So in January, you have a broad template ready with us, and we go on populating it over a period of time so that once we are in towards the end of the financial year, we have the entire data structure ready with us, number one. Number two is what is the central theme and the central impact of all what we have done. The storyline is also used to be ready. And I think this is the learning which we are drawing from, my experience in Reliance for that matter. Also, if you look at these 9 principles, I mean, I'm really amazed at the comprehensiveness of these. I mean, we're not just looking at some environmental related. No, there is public policy involved. There is supplier. There is both input supply chains, output supply chains. We're talking about society. We're talking about environment. I've mentioned. We're talking about the role of the board, etc. So there's a huge amount of work that needs to be done. So it's very comprehensive. At the same time, it's the second bullet point here: governance, leadership, and oversight. The entire responsibility of compliance, it's a board-driven process, as is articulated in the CSR rules also. This entire process is a board-driven process. The board actually lays down the guidelines, the principles on which and approves the policies, etc., basis which the entire thing actually rolls down. So I think that explains the criticality of why we need to do, and also how we need to actually set up the operations to actually do it well within, it's possible to do it in 2 to 3 weeks time after the end of the financial year. I'll stop here.
So there is one relevant question which I would like to take it up. Can there be a case when an entity haven't translated its policies regarding any particular principle into procedure, but extended it to its value chain partners?
So usually this is very difficult to see as a case, Dolly, I would say that, because usually it is the organization which leads the transformative, process,
It's a
and then
reverse question.
extends it to the value chain partners. So in fact, we have to set the house in order first. But it could happen that there could be some policies in regards with only scope 3. And in such case, I would say probably then that policy has to do, has to be implemented through value chain partners and not just you. Yeah, but then usually that won't be the case. Yeah, that's what my reading is from this particular question. And just 1 or 2 points I would also mention here is, what Sachinji mentioning. In fact, the dedicated ESG team starts working the year before, in the sense the, according to the KPIs, the key performance indicators aligned to each of these principles, and then the mapped departments. But then April onwards, especially for the environmental part, because that is huge. Yeah. So like for organization like Western Enterprises, which is into infrastructure, a lot of data is collected from sites, and these sites could be distributed. I'm right now sitting in Uttar Pradesh, UPJJM project that I'm visiting, the Jal Jeevan Mission. We are supporting 2,500 villages. So imagine the data is coming from 1,052 schemes in relation to energy consumption, in relation to water waste and so on. So it could be April onwards that the data is coming. And with other departments, as Sachinji has mentioned, October onwards, communicating with them. Even for not just BRSR, it could be SR also simultaneously. And plus the assurance part has to be planned accordingly. Sometimes your tech platforms could be your savior, because that serves as ESGRP for easier, management of the data, analytics, stakeholder engagement, and so on. Over to you.
Yes, so now moving onwards, we'll look at section C, which is principle-wise disclosures. So here there are, company has to disclose on the basis of 9 principles of NGRBC. So basically this section is aimed at helping entities to demonstrate their performance in integrating the principles and core elements with key processes and decisions. This questions has been divided into 2 parts. There are essential mandatory disclosures and there are leadership indicators, which is voluntary. It's up to company to provide disclosures or not for voluntary leadership indicators. Then basically this 9 principles are focusing on the how companies are treating their employees, stakeholders, how they are taking care of their safety, whether they are giving that, conducting the training programs, environmental related data on energy consumption, wastewater treatment, then how they are doing the waste management, complaints on the POSH, then are they are creating any job in the smaller towns, and also the supply chain disclosures. So moving forward, we will focus on the each one of the principles. So I will just start with that. So the principle 1, business should conduct and govern themselves with integrity and in a manner that is ethical, transparent, and accountable. So we will go one by one on each principle. Yeah.
Only as we discussed that, that we have left with 45 minutes and 9 principles, or 5 minutes for each principle.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, and somewhere, the principle one, somehow I did it
We
earlier
have covered
also.
already.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 We can
But
probably.
your taste is there, huh? Sudhakar has given the timeline. Now it's your taste.
Yeah. So we'll go to principle 2. Businesses should provide goods and services in a manner that is sustainable and safe.
Yeah. And should I or
Yeah.
how?
Yes, please.
So in case of principle two, where basically we talk about sustainable and safe goods and services, here, from the point of view, so now the approach will change according to the business type. So if it is a manufacturing facility, you would talk about LCA, life cycle analysis done for the product, how the product is sustainable from at the each element which has gone into it, and cradle to cradle approach as to from make to that of post use, how it is going to be handled. And in fact, there comes EPR also, the extended producer responsibility and all. Just recently, we are into infrastructure and construction and demolition waste rules have been in place, and in Gazette, the details have come in as to how we have to implement it. But apart from that, the idea is at the design stage itself, you keep in mind what we would be doing and how sustainably we'll be handling the product at the end of life, whether it is product, whether it is project, and so on and so forth. Okay. So, like for example, in case of infrastructure projects, cement is a very critical component which goes in, and a lot of carbon emissions associated with cement. We are replacing that with fly ash. Yeah, so like for last 23, 24, we substituted almost 16,000 tons of, cement with that of fly ash, and we avoided 14,000 tons of carbon emissions associated with it. So there are standard calculations for that. So what alternative material, sustainable material has gone into it? How have you made your product, your projects more climate resilient for that matter? Yeah. How have you built recycling, processes, whether it is product or whether it is packaging? Yeah. So all of these things would be discussed in this particular, principle too. Yeah. Over to you. Yeah.
Yeah, if I may, just a quick example from two industries. We are all exposed to, the quick commerce industry today, 10 minutes delivery, 5 minutes delivery, 20 minutes delivery, etc. While these platforms, and it opens up a huge there's a huge convenience factor, but also there's a school of thought which is arguing that are these 10 minutes model, 20 minutes model, etc. are really sustainable, because they're encouraging people to consume more, which is a value kind of a discussion. But also that means, more number of trips the carrier is actually from the distribution center to your home. He's traveling 4 times a day, twice a day, etc. The use of packaging material is actually going 3, 4, 5 times. So there are questions which are related to, these elements. The second principle, that while it's a great business model to start with, there are concerns from, which people are actually expressing from the point of view of resource efficiencies, or sustainability, etc. And I think I cannot name the company on this platform, but you would have seen that a lot of now e-commerce companies are actually delivering goods to you in a packaging which is the manufacturer's packaging and not their own packaging.
Yeah.
So the manufacturer's packaging is, they've worked with the manufacturers to design a sustainable package in packing material, etc. So that the material, when it actually comes from the manufacturer to the distribution center to your home, it is the same, and there is no add-on actually packaging that happens. These are some of the small measures which many companies are actually taking to ensure that they are able to have bring in sustainability into and efficiency, of course, into their supply chains, both input and output. Yeah.
But Sachin, if you say that the example what you are given about the food, this thing, delivery in 10 minutes, see, in principle too, they also talk about the safety aspect. Which food you can prepare it in 10 minutes? That is even delivery also. So it is not a 2-minute Maggie noodles. Suppose if you are ordering some food, definitely. So what the companies might be doing is they are cooking the food, they are preserving that, just heating it up and then pushing it to you.
Yes.
So where is the safety aspect of that? It is quite harmful actually to the people. So this 10 minutes or 15 minutes delivery schedules, real question is, are they really sustainable? So here, these 9 principles, when we talk about that, those companies have to have an introspection by applying these principles. Are we on the right track or not? You may be there in the short term, you may be able to get benefits, but long term, definitely you will be the loser. Yes, Dolly.
Yeah. That's so true that the sustainability is at actually question. Yeah. So, yeah, the next principle 3 is businesses should respect and promote the well-being of the employees, including those in their value chains. So, this is on the social factor of the ESG. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dolly, here. And the question has come about the service industry principle too. I'll just take 30 seconds for it. So, like if you talk about data centers, so data centers, you have to look at what are the material issues for the business that you are in for principle two. So, like here, data centers, it is the energy consumption and the water which is used for cooling purposes. So, if you become energy efficient, and energy self-sufficient, you're automatically helping become more sustainable. From the service industry point of view, I took this just one example and just an overview. And e-waste responsibility would also be part of that. Yeah. Coming to principle 3 here, talking about employee health, well-being, and all safety. We come from infrastructure, and for us, the most material issue is occupational health, safety, and environment. And I'm at a project site here, and just an example from yesterday that we went to a site and where we realized that the work is happening at height, and one of the workers did not wear the safety belt, and it was with the subcontractor, not us. But then we stopped the work there itself. We asked the contractor to give the safety belt because they were working at a height, and then the work resumed. So, here the responsibility doesn't just lie with the subcontractor or the value chain partner or associate for that matter. It's our responsibility too. So whether you talk about safety issues, whether you talk about overall posh related issues, it could be health checkups, health safety audits done. So this is the summer season. We ensure through the safety team that sufficient electrolytes are given. So these are just small things, but they matter. I'm giving you a practical example of even emergency drills. Like for example, what are the emergency routes for fire escape? The fire drill training and even other emergency response, CPR, and all of that on site. Like for example, insurance coverage and all of that. So these are few things that we talk about, and impact would be in terms of zero fatal accidents, 100% posh committee coverage. So these are the outcomes that you talk about in principle 3. Yeah. Over to Sachin sir. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. In fact, there's a very large IT company within India which actually champions the cause of employee first as its motto, and rightly so. I think the entire business model revolves around, they're into services industry. So the entire business model revolves around people and how happy or how efficient they are. So I think it's an interesting case study to actually look at it. Many of the companies, we would have also noticed that they participated extensively in surveys like Great Places to Work, etc., which actually provide a kind of a rating system and a benchmark. And companies are increasingly reporting those outcomes or those results also as part of you know their commitment to employee well-being. So so it's not just about the legal or the IR compliance. That is a given thing. Whether these guidelines exist or not, one has to comply with those guidelines because they're law. But I think over and above what the companies are doing to make their workplaces a better workplace is what I think this principle essentially talks about. May I also add that while if you refer to the detailed guidelines, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 things written, but I think there is given the importance of this principle, there could be companies which are doing the 11th thing also, which is not listed, and I think I would encourage a lot of companies to, if they're doing something which is for the betterment of their employees, they should come forward and report it as an affirmative action and not just limited to what is there in the checklist. Yeah, that's it.
You see, that one more thing also, when we are talking about the well-being of the employees, we always think that the welfare schemes or the kind of environment, the working environment and all. But somehow, I always used to say that the training aspects in most of the organizations is neglected. When we talk about the training aspect, doesn't mean on the subject knowledge. Other things like how to handle the stress is very, very important. Every organization, if you say that, if ask any employee at any level, he is already always overburdened, he is always overpressurized. Apart from official, he has a personal life. But if you see, especially in places like Bombay, Delhi, Calcutta, Madras, and Hyderabad, all these places, everybody work for not less than 12 to 14 hours, including the commutation time. I know there are two big CEOs, they say, okay, somebody says 70 hours you work, somebody says 90 hours you work. This is quite stupidity, according to me. The reason being, when we talk about the well-being of the employees, is this the way we encourage? Why can't? And similarly, all these people give big lectures about smart working, not hard working and all. In the organizations, is anybody teaching especially the budding employees, the middle level and the lower level, what is a smart working? Because see, I myself, when I was working with initially in the Reliance up to 2015, I always reach it home when the date used to get changed. That means in the midnight at 12 o'clock, I used to reach home and I used to have my dinner at that point of time. After dinner, immediately I can't go to bed. So I have to spend 1 hour before the idiot box. And then I have to also again having a pressure on my head by slow sleep immediately so that you have to get up early in the morning and rush to office again. I'm sure that everybody is having this. Basing on this particular principle 3, organizations have to put their best endeavors. When we are talking about the well-being of the employees, they have to put a question that why can't the employees leave the office on time? If not on time, okay, 2 hours extra, but not to 4 to 6 hours extra time. Which employees are leaving the office, say, for example, 6 o'clock is up to 6 o'clock, the working hours, at least leave the office maximum by 8 o'clock. Some MNCs are implementing this policy. This I have heard, and in Bombay itself, some companies are doing that. 7 o'clock, some people say we are off. 8 o'clock, some people say we are off. Beyond that, in fact, recently I went to US and okay, that I have been told that my daughter told me that in Amazon and Microsoft, 5 o'clock means 5 o'clock, period. Maximum 6 o'clock. Beyond that, nobody works there. I wish that we have that kind of a thing in India also.
You know,
Yes, sorry, next principle. Yeah.
I would just like to say that, in Western, there is compulsory explanation if you have to give if you are going to work on weekends in offices.
Correct.
And you need a special permission for that.
So,
One.
Dr. Aditi, when I was
Second.
talking about that, we have to, but just one, I will take 1 minute
Sure.
before you
Sure.
hand it over to you. When I said initially, this should not be a tick box exercise. Every principle need to be analyzed,
True.
discussed, debated, and bring the efficiency. For a moment, I will put BRSR into a side, BRSR reporting. But these principles, the caption, if you see national guidelines on responsible business conduct. When they talk about the responsibility, they are talking about the environment, they are talking about the stakeholders, they are talking about the governance aspect also. So these aspects, the company secretaries have to take the leadership, have to initiate that each and every principle, the way we are discussing it here, they have to discuss at their organizational levels also. Say, for example, principle 3, this is completely related to the HR. Let the
Absolutely.
HR work upon this. That's what I say. Yeah,
Absolutely.
go ahead.
Absolutely. And so there are so many interesting questions here. Is micromanaging an employee non-compliance? Principle 3. I think, audience is pouring heart here, when they are asking all of these questions. Definitely micromanaging is an inefficient leader in workplace. So whether it is non-compliance to principle 3 or not is a debatable thing, but then definitely it is inefficiency on the part of the leader if they are micromanaging. Yeah. Yeah. Over
There
to
is
you.
one more question on this particular principle 3. Well-being includes mental health also. Yeah, definitely. So there are
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was going through few days back, I was going through some BRSR report, and I came across that there are companies who are keeping a workshops to check on the mental health, or there
There
are
are
many
counselors. There are counselors
correct.
on the campus. There are doctors on the campus that the organization need to appoint, and they have to be on place and available.
Yes. Yeah. So now we'll move to principle 4. Businesses should respect the interest of and be responsive to all its stakeholders. So this is a huge word, stakeholders. So there are multiple, people are involved in this. Yeah.
Yeah. Would we like to change the sequence first,
Yeah,
Sachin sir, and then I
yeah,
come
sure.
in, so that
I think
yeah.
it's important because often when we say stakeholders means shareholders, no, stakeholders is not equal to shareholders. Shareholders, of course, are as investors are a prominent group, but I think when you look at stakeholders, you look beyond every person who participates or who contributes to your business essentially is a stakeholder. Is how I will define it. I will exclude the employees because that gets covered in principle 3. But I think here we are also looking at the surrounding communities, the service providers, which are there directly or indirectly connected with your business. So if you have a factory which is located at, let's say, place X, then the community which surrounds, this surrounds your factory or business installation, the natural resources over which they had rights over, let's say, rivers or forests, etc. All those are actually a part of their larger livelihood systems, including livestock, etc. So when the business actually, when we're talking about responsible business conduct, the businesses have to take a, complete view of, all the stakeholders in that sense. And this includes both natural and physical persons as well, what I mentioned. And companies are actually integrating their CSR policies and their programs around this particular principle 4. And one of the elements in the CSR rules also talks about the location of these projects, whether, this is local or outside the business area, etc. So there is a specific requirement of mentioning where this project is. The whole idea is that whatever the company does as CSR is actually part and parcel of its larger business setup.
Thank you so much, Sachin, giving this particular overview. And can I bring in one example of a project that where I'm sitting?
Yeah.
Here, yeah, like Jal Jeevan Nigam is the client, yeah, for whom we are implementing this particular project. But then we have to coordinate with each block. Yeah, so there are block development officers, the district development officers with whom we need to be connected. So they are another stakeholders. Then we have to also be connected with the gram panchayats. So they are another stakeholder in this particular project. We work very closely with gram panchayats to bring in awareness that people have to first take the advantage of Har Ghar Jal. So there are some houses who would not like to probably take it. So the awareness comes in for the community there, where CSR helps. Yeah, the CSR group, CSR team with us actually helps to build in that particular awareness. Then once the project is implemented and everything, while handover, then again the awareness is done for water conservation with the community. So you understood there are so many, even in the community, also there could be so many stakeholders that you are addressing, and not just probably the end user of that particular or end beneficiary of that particular project. It could be gram panchayats, it could be pradhan, it could be your women self-help groups in our case, and so on and so forth. So many stakeholders are involved in one of the project. Over to
In fact,
Sandeep.
let me add one thing. In one of the
Sure,
forums where I was giving a presentation on these 9 principles, when in the fourth principle, I still remember that when I said that we have to respect the interest. See the words, beautiful words they have used, whoever had drawn these 9 principles. Respect the interest, be responsive to all its stakeholders. When I was mentioning one of the gentlemen who was there, I was addressing a company secretary's forum there. So he said, okay, bhai, that okay, my marketing people, they don't do this and all those things. Then I said that as a company secretary, do you have any customers with you? He said, of course, my shareholders are there. I said, are you respecting their interests? He said, no, sir, we don't deal with them. I have a R&D agent. The R&D agent will deal with that. I said, look, in that R&D agent, that agency is there. That means you are the principal. You have to take the ownership, not that R&D agent. Several companies, the shareholders are treated by the R&D agents with all due regards like flies. They don't respect at all. If you go on writing the letters, reminders and all. In fact, as company secretary, we should have to take the responsibility. In Reliance, we used to take that. Number one, non-receipt of dividends. Please ensure that immediately it should receive them. Similarly, if any dividend which is outstanding for a period of 7 years, you have to transfer to IEPF account. So why can't we remind the shareholders, whoever have not claimed the dividend, go on reminding that 1,000 rupees and above at Reliance, every year we used to remind the shareholders. Now what happened under the new Companies Act, even the corresponding shares are also to be transferred to the IEPF account. Once it is transferred to the IEPF account, as per the law, though you can claim it back, but it is a Herculean task getting it out of the government's kitty. So there what happens is, again, the company secretary of the company have to play a very key role in pursuing that IEPF authorities and getting that dividend amount as well as the shares released. This is exactly the principle 4, which talks about respect the interest of the stakeholders and responsibility to the shareholders. So as a company secretary, I have to take the ownership. As far as my shareholders are concerned, I am their leader. I have to ensure their best interests of the company. So we are the ambassadors of the company. This is what I have learned in Reliance. And I used to tell everybody, every company secretary, but this is how we have to do it. I cannot simply say my R&D agent is there and he will take care of that. Am I correct, Sachin?
Sorry, I was on mute. Yes, you're absolutely right. And not just related to the dividend part, but a whole bunch of things. So we had a very active team within the secretarial department, which would immediately address all kinds of concerns of shareholders, and not just limited to share transfers, and which is a transactional thing. But also there were questions which were being asked. There were explanations which were being asked, or a query, but we had a timeline that we had to respond to each of these shareholders, for all the queries or questions which they have. So I think it's a good practice. Yeah.
See, in fact, Sachin, when you use the word, I remember now in ISO 9000 earlier, there used to one word, internal customers and external customers. Internal customer means all our colleagues who are working for the organization, they are our internal customers. Unless until we understand their needs and service them, they will not be able to discharge their own responsibilities. So this internal customers in Reliance, we used to have a 24-hour turnout time maximum. Outside, it is 48 hours. That kind of strict, what's called as timelines, we used to have it. Same is the case with the R&D agent also. Though under the Companies Act, you have to do a particular action with X number of days. We used to always go to 50% of the time or 40% of the time only is given to us. Shared transfers have to happen, say, for example, if it is 7 days maximum, we used to say within 2 days it has to happen. That kind of targets we used to have it. So this is what nothing but when we read these 9 principles towards BRSR, let us not read it in that sense that I have to do a tick box exercise as far as my BRSR reporting is concerned. If we can understand these 9 principles, we know how to conduct the business with a responsibility. Yeah, next point.
Yes. So Principle 5 talks about businesses should respect and promote human rights. Again, it is relatable to Principle 4 somewhere, but now the word human rights is a very huge one. It will be covering many laws, labor laws, many factory laws, how companies treating their labor, their workmen, apart from their other stakeholders. Yeah.
But I think, Dolly, here the core essence, the word which is used is human right, which is what distinguishes it from Principle 4. And I think as human beings, we are all we all have certain basic fundamental rights which either are enshrined by the Constitution or otherwise through UN, otherwise. So I think the Principle 5 essentially talks about businesses should recognize that every individual has a certain human rights, uh, and those are the rights, those have to be respected, and the businesses have to be responsive to, those. So principle 4 and 5, essentially, we need to kind of read and interpret it and report it possibly in conjunction is how I look at it. And also when you go deep into that it should not be limited to a company and those industry group, but also down the line in terms of its forward and backward supply chain partners, value chain partners, etc. So if the company follows a principle of non-discrimination, then it should not be just limited to its own company or its own setup. But I think that the principle of non-discrimination on let's say age, gender, etc., has to be a much wider construct, and that's how it needs.
Especially when you have expat employees in your organization, and similarly when you are having overseas subsidiaries, and then the intercompany transfers and all are taking place. That point of time, point 5 is very, very crucial.
Yes. So we will move to Principle 6 now.
Yeah.
Business should respect and make efforts to protect. Yeah.
Should I go, Ravi?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah. So, just a little bit about Principle 5 that I would like to say. So, like here, examples that you talk about is how many of your employees are permanent? Yeah, so just having contract employees in place, what is the proportion? That itself talks about the intentions of the business. Yeah, so it's very important. So hats off to the committee which has worked towards putting, BRSR very comprehensively in place. Yeah, so from the questions itself, you will realize as to how comprehensively it has been made when it comes to human rights and all of the other principles. And then you talk about what are like what is the comparative of key management personnel salary? How many times is it to the median average salary in the organization? So that's another question. So very peculiar questions which are put up, which automatically gives you an idea about how the business has been made responsibly, or how the conduct has been done responsibly beyond posh and compulsory, like no child labor and so on and so forth. Yeah. So just that part was probably I thought I'll just refer to, and then come to Principle 6 here. Business should respect and make efforts. So here, basically, when you talk about environment, the first thing that you talk about is energy. What is the energy intensity? So all of these So I had an opportunity to discuss with the SEBI representatives, who are part of the team which is putting in BRSR in place, and they very particularly, I asked them question as to, now when we are disclosing what the intensities are, what will be the expectation over a period of time. So they said the expectation is not that you keep reducing the intensity immediately, even if you are able to maintain it. So, what is the meaning of this in terms of expectation? Is that the energy and emission intensity as compared to the turnover that you had? What is the energy consumption? What is the emissions in terms of scope 1, 2, and 3? Um, so if your intensities are maintained in spite of your operations going up, the turnover going up, business is growing, that means you're taking some effort to become energy efficient. You're taking some effort to reduce your scope 1, 2, and 3. So the step starts with the analyzing, like, where do my energy and emission hotspots lie? Yeah. So, like, for example, for most of us, probably scope 3 is the emission hotspot. Yeah. Probably 93% of your profile emissions come from, scope 3. Yeah. But then, that's not something that you can immediately change. But then probably can start with scope 1, what's directly under control. But in BRSR core, as we eventually mature as an organization, the responsibility expected, responsibility related expectations are higher, and then company has to also take effort with the value chain to reduce the scope 3 emissions. Your purchase goods, there are 15 categories in scope 3. So your purchase goods, it could be your commute of employees, and so on and so forth. Yeah, so that's about that, and of course, water intensity is another that you look at. And when you say water intensity, you not only the input, so you have to look at organization in terms of a process. The system will have input and will have output. So how is the water consumption happening related to operations and so on and so forth? And then post the use of and in the operations, what is the discharge? Are you monitoring that discharge? How are you reducing the consumption? And then again on waste, and then categories of waste. Yeah. And then are you first tracking? Because unless you measure, you will not be able to control. So then in the categories of waste, it could be domestic waste. And in our case, like in infrastructure, it is the construction waste. How much of it has been recycled? How much is the landfill percentage? So you have to disclose all of this honestly. And that's what probably is the expectation of BRSR. So I've just given you the overview of Principle 6. It is huge.
Yeah, it's a huge one. Yeah, there are many things. There are like circular economy, greenhouse gases. There are many things to do the deep dive.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do we have, in fact, just I will take one more minute, Dolly, in this. When we talk about efforts to protect and restore the environment, again, the same thing, that here what they are saying is protection of the environment as well as the restoration of the environment. In fact, in the very first webinar, I mentioned that if you see on the planet Earth, human being is the only animal who exploit the environment, whereas other animals, they live it very friendly and harmoniously with the environment. And human being is the only animal who exploit it to the maximum. And he never put that restoration of the environment. He thinks that as if he owns the resources, especially which are freely available. Several times the private companies, owners, they used to say that, look, I am paying for this. How does it matter? Several times, when you use 24/7 air conditioners, the amount of carbon emissions which are there, similarly, the wastage of water, wastage of resources, they don't understand that by merely paying the money, you cannot exploit the resources. That is what exactly Principle 6 talks about. Yes, Sachin, you want to say something?
Yeah, small, real life case study, which I was engaged in a startup in the last 1 year. And obviously for a startup, we have to be very, very conservative on cost. One of our high cost items was travel cost. People would travel, all over the place, and it was believed that if you don't travel, no business will come. As a CFO, you have to cut down on the cost. So when we initially proposed that we want to cut down on travel cost, everybody was up in arms that, oh, if you do that, if people don't travel, no business will come, kuch bhi nahi hoga karke. So we came up with this whole idea thanks to one of my colleagues. He said, sir, instead of cutting down the travel cost, let's bring in the sustainability part of it. So he said, okay, if you have a budgeted approval for 500 flights in a year, let the department achieve the same outcomes with, let's say, in 300 flights they have taken, and balance 200 flights which they have not traveled. Basically, we calculate the carbon footprint and then give a notional monetized value to that, and then say that out of this fund, 50% of whatever they have saved or 20% of whatever they have saved will be actually given as incentive to those employees. So suddenly each of the employees, they had a stake in the whole game. This helped us in two ways. One, I was able to bring down my cost as a finance guy. Similarly, at an organization level, we were able to achieve the same outcomes with much lesser number of flights or hotel stays or, taxis, etc., which would normally happen. So it was kind of a win-win situation for all of us. And they started looking at themselves as a participants in the whole process. And I think that is the key to the success.
Yeah, that's a great to know this case study you shared. Thank you for sharing. So now moving
Dolly,
for
just the question which has come, and because it is important, I'll just take it that according to the recent SEBI circular, green credit related question has come up, which is new, which wasn't there earlier. So that's something which has come up new. And regarding the PPP, the purchase,
purchase power parity.
purchase power parity. Here, basically, you look at the global benchmark and you may need to convert the revenue into USD, using the PPP exchange rate published by World Bank. Yeah? So, like for example, 1 crore rupees, 1 crore is equal to USD 0.2 million as per the PPP rate at this particular point of time. So then your energy intensity would be whatever is the total energy in gigajoules divided by USD 0.2 million revenue. Yeah, so that was important. And go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. So now moving onwards for Principle 7, businesses when engaging in influencing public and regulatory policy should do in a manner that is responsible and transparent. Yeah.
I think this point we have covered earlier also when we were discussing Principle 4, 5, human rights, etc. The good part is that it recognizes the role of advocacy and as a means to actually protect and further business interest, which is what everybody does, but also do it in a manner which recognizes the rights as mentioned in the earlier principles, and do it in a transparent manner. So a lot of companies I know of actually formally publish their these policies. These are available on their websites, and these are part of their larger governance systems or values and behaviors, which practices which these companies have adopted. And these are very positive things. Yeah. In fact, Mr. Sudhakar, would kind of agree with me that we at Reliance, we always took pride on the fact that we have very transparent policies with respect to Principle 7, and all employees are actually made part of this, in a formal setup. Yeah, you're part of.
Absolutely. In fact, and see, not only that, RIL was one of the few companies who used to publish the sustainability reports right from 2004 onwards. And that you used to send it to the top shareholders, okay, that whichever the FIIs and insurance companies, whichever are there on that, we used to send them the sustainability reports voluntarily. So after a long gap, that business responsibility report has been made mandated in the erstwhile listing agreement. But prior to that, it was doing, there are even some Tata companies, they used to do that, and some other companies also like that. But RIL was always a leader as far as these things are concerned. Yeah. Yes,
Yeah.
Dolly.
So, yeah, moving to the principle 8, businesses should
Sorry,
promote.
sorry, just one point which I'll mention here, like, but how in action, two examples have come, but regarding value chain also, like in terms of value chain partnership, whether you have included this as a principle beyond, other things like inclusive growth and equitable development. Here, specifically, the question asked is like, how many of these, MSME partners are working with you? What is the percentage of that? So that automatically gives, and how many from the rural metropolitan area and so on and so forth. So that way it gives also the idea about inclusive growth. Yeah, over to you. Go ahead.
In fact, Dr. Aditi, let me say one more thing also. Is in Reliance, I observed this value chain partners, whoever are there with us, whatever the policies of Reliance, to a large extent, we used to extend it to all the value chain partners also. Say, for example, in our refinery, that at one point of time, I was attending one of the presentation. There, what I have been told is, say, for example, the truck operators, when that our refinery was under construction, every day 1,500 trucks used to come in and go out. When it is going out, that doesn't mean my responsibility is over. That truck driver as well as the cleaners welfare is also the important responsibility of the principal. That's how we used to see that. So when the training used to take place, even those truck drivers, how they have to maintain their health, about that the what's called as disadvantages of having that vices and all, like liquor, this, that, whatnot and all. Similarly, AIDS prevention, they used to be given a lectures by our medical teams. So a lot of things like this used to happen. Apart from that thing, the safety aspects, by that, you are not supposed to drive beyond this thing. Suppose if Reliance take, how the hell I am concerned with the truck operators, this thing. No, it is not so. So always leader has to take the leadership. Whoever is connected along with that leader, they have to grow. Same is the case, wherever we work, whether we are a CFO or a company secretary or a CEO, whoever it may be, we have to say that I am the leader, and whoever are the people attached to me, they all have to grow along with me. So that is called as this inclusive growth. When we talk about that in one of the principles, I think it is there. This word inclusive growth is also there. If I am not wrong, which one is the one? Dolly, I think principle 5. I
Sorry.
remember vaguely. There is one word, inclusive growth is there in one of the principles.
Yeah, this is
Yeah.
principle
Sorry, that
8.
principle 8.
Will be
Yeah,
discussed.
principle 8 only. It is there in front of us. Business should promote inclusive growth and equitable development. This is exactly what I was saying. So, in fact, these 9 principles is according to me like that, that Bhagavad Gita, we used to have that 12 principles or 15 principles. We used to have a bird's eye view of Bhagavad Gita like that. It used to be there on my desk earlier when I was in Reliance. So similarly here also, these 9 principles, if we analyze it like that, it's really beautiful one, sir. Yeah.
Yeah. So, focusing on principle 8, businesses should promote inclusive growth and equitable development. So, here is the focus is on what are the economic and social challenges are there, and how company is trying to, bringing the solution for that. Yeah. So,
In fact, I will also add one more thing also. Several times I used to say this, of course, this is not concerned with this thing. But as a leader and as a boss, I always have to have one principle. If my team develops, I am developing. If my team is growing, I am growing. It's not other way around. I can never grow unless until my team grows. This is exactly principle 8 when it talks about inclusive growth and equitable development.
the
Even in our
holistic view.
personal lives also, we can incorporate some of these principles very well.
Yes.
Very rightly mentioned, Sudhakar, as a person, like if you are a team leader, these are also your principle you have to follow as a manager. If you say you rightly, not only personal, professional life, it's your growth, your subordinates' growth is there, then only your growth is possible. Very rightly mentioned. Very simple thing, but many of us don't understand this importance. Yeah, Dolly, please.
Yes. And the last principle, principle 9, businesses should engage with and provide value to their customers in a responsible manner. And this principle is also related to principle 2, where the safety word was there. So there are companies who are into manufacturing of special skincare product. There are many products, FMCG products. So there the safety for the consumers should be a priority. Yeah.
I think aside all these, one of the important things which are there in the guidelines also relates to data privacy. Today, everything is on internet in terms of business, etc. Every time you swipe your card, every time you make use of a digital platform for making making a payment or placing an order, etc., there's a huge amount of personal information that a consumer is actually sharing.
Yeah.
And there's a huge responsibility on each of the businesses as to how this information is actually how the privacy of the consumers are being protected. Uh, Although there are consent forms and all those things are there, how do business ensure that the data is not leaked, the customer data is actually protected at all times, etc. So I think, or if at all the data is shared, it is shared with their
Yeah.
express concern. So I think the guidelines also have evolved over a period of time, and they recognize that the customer is not really the physical customer alone, but also digital customer. He could be transacting on B2B, B2C, on multiple digital platforms as well. So to that extent, I just thought I'll bring in that other element also on data privacy, cyber security also, which is equally important.
Yeah, it's a huge problem and challenge also. We have the technology at ease, but it comes with a lot of other issues in the terms of privacy.
That's correct. A lot of payments are actually happening on digital platforms. So the
Yes.
companies or the businesses have to ensure that their payment gateways, etc., are fully secured, because it's not just a financial loss uh, at a transaction level, but also huge reputation loss as well.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, and should I just I'll add a little things. Sachinji had taken the point. He has hit the bullseye that mainly that you talk about data security, cyber security, and all of these. So how many complaints have come from the consumer in regards with all of these things? But there's just one point that I would like to add is here also it talks about who are the organizations which are into giving essential services. And if you are into essential services, whether there have been complaints and how many complaints have been resolved, what mechanism is put in place in all of these cases. It also talks about are there any risks identified in regards with disruption or discontinuation of a particular product. Yeah, what is the safety information disclosed in regards with a particular product? So these are the few things that are talked about here, and of course what Sachinji has already mentioned. Yeah, okay.
Yes. So yeah, we are coming towards the end of this session, and I actually enjoyed a lot this thoroughly this discussion. So thank you for that. Yeah, over to you, Dipti ma'am.
Only there
There are
are,
questions
if any
here.
questions are there in the chat box. Yeah, Deepti, please take
Yeah.
up.
On
Yeah.
principle 8, we have the question how it can be implemented by or applicable to service industry like IT services, IT education services. Do you have a preferential procurement policy where you give preferences to purchase from suppliers comprising marginalized or vulnerable groups?
I think in regards with so like in case of IT, for that matter, even in case of Western Enterprise, probably the preferential procurement policy right now does not exist. The organization can disclose what the case is at the particular point of time. So the organization can be honest here, but there can be efforts in place as to how you will bring in the development of the marginalized and the vulnerable groups. So probably then here the storyline goes that through CSR, who all are your beneficiaries? What kind of programs have you aligned to your overall business? Like we are into road infrastructure, so we have Well Suraksha program where you bring in awareness about road safety. Then we have awareness in regards with the water conservation because we are into a lot of water programs. We are into programs like Well Netrutva. So from the principle 8, probably when we talk about IT, you can have CSR programs towards literacy, computer literacy, yeah, for the marginalized groups. So that could be aligned to overall business, and so this is one example that I can give as to how the principle 8 could be worked out.
In fact, I would like to say this, instead of calling it as a preferential procurement policy, you have a fair procurement policy.
Correct.
Okay, whatever the procurement policy is having it, please do have a fairness. Why I'm saying this thing is some companies, they squeeze virtually the suppliers. And at the same point of time, they don't pay them also on time. And because of that, what happens is some suppliers, they don't touch the companies also. Unless until, suppose if you are in a bullish position, of course, then you can bulldoze anyone. That is a different thing altogether. But if you really want to have these these 9 principles, out of those, if you want to take one leaf out of it, have a fair procurement policy from whoever you are procuring it. If you are having some kind of a differential procurement and all those things, please do mention it in the procurement policy itself. The same point of time, whatever your deliverables, whatever your payment terms, etc., and try to adhere to that as much as possible. But normally it doesn't happen in the commercial world. I think this is what exactly the regulators are looking at from us.
So there is one question also, two questions. Is it compulsory for the company to improve its rating every year? It is in question answer.
Yeah.
The question is it compulsory for the company to improve its rating every year?
It's on ESG rating.
Yeah. Can I come in here for this particular question? It's a very valid question. And in fact, there is some pressure in terms of also improving the ESG rating in a positive manner. I'm not saying in a negative manner. And it's natural to have that competitiveness. Let me tell you, your investors, for that matter, are continuously tracking your ESG rating score. Your competitors are also monitoring your ESG rating score. So, whether in terms of ESG rating, which band do you fall into? Severe risk, high risk, yeah, medium risk, or low risk. Yeah. So coming in low risk is always, a win-win situation for the organization and for everyone in that particular business, everyone who is getting benefited with that particular business. So it's always better to be in a mindset and have your analysis ready as to what are the parameters which go into these ESG rating. So whether it is international level or whether it is a national level, and which are applicable for your particular business.
Right.
Yeah. So according to that, take down the parameters and keep your performances outcome comparative ready as to working on what would bring in improvement, whether it is working on energy which will bring in improvement for me, whether it is working on emissions will bring in improvement for me, or social or governance. So like you could be strong in governance but could be weak in terms of environmental some parameters. How are you in terms of social? So that analysis and that in that positive competitive spirit, working on ESG ratings is good. Yeah.
That is. Next question is well-being includes mental health also, right? Are corporates creating any policies for this?
Yes, I think it includes mental health, and I think a lot of companies are actually now have started having formal policies related to mental health. Yeah.
I think with this, we have completed all the questions and answered everyone. I think right time okay, 5-10 minutes, okay, which is with the kind of subject we are very much meticulously covered everything. Thanks a lot, Dolly, for the presentation and timely closure. Thanks, Aditi ma'am, Dr. Aditi. Thanks for your inputs.
Thank you.
Mr. Sachin, for your inputs. And as usual, Sudhakar. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, participants, for active participation. As mentioned, this presentation recording will be uploaded in our YouTube link, which is link is given by Dolly to everyone. Thanks, everyone.
Thank
See
you.
you again. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.